Good morning, boys. Now, again, come back to that geography. Now, in the previous class, we were doing chapter number 9, that was demographic attributes, and chapter 10 and chapter 11 is not there in the present syllabus. Present means the updated syllabus which has been sent by the council. So, because of that, I am moving ahead with the next chapter, that is chapter number 12. Now, chapter number 12 is about environmental management and land use pattern. Now, if you look at this particular word, environment. Now, environment is a very much familiar word, which means that environment means which surrounds everything. It means that which surrounds everything in which all the living things live or exist. Clear? And land use pattern means how the lands is being utilized by the people in the present world. Clear? So based on that, you need to focus, and especially those important definitions and especially important explanations. Remember it because it's very important. Now let us continue. That is the chapter number 12. Now if you look at it, especially in terms of the word environment. Now if you look at this word environment, now this word has been derived from the French word which means environment. Clear? And it tries to explain us about the surroundings. I told you, because environment is a term which tries to explain us about the surrounding. So therefore environment refers to the sum total of conditions. Sum total of the conditions. The conditions means what? The temperature, rainfall, humidity. Everything comes under the sum total of condition which surrounds man at a given point of space and time. Let us continue next, that is development. Now development means what? Overall improvement. Now overall improvement in what? Now overall improvement means in terms of economic, social and political condition of a society. Now economic means what? Especially how you earn, or what is the source of your livelihood, or what is the source of your earnings. That is termed as a economic. Now social means the relation within the society or within the neighbors. And the political conditions. The political conditions means the situation which prevails in a country depending upon the politics or depending upon the different political leaders playing different agendas or moving through different fields. Now if you look at here, now development, it means overall improvement in terms of economic, social and political condition of a society. So whenever a development takes place, the development takes place at a price of natural resources. It means that when the natural resources are being exploited or it is being used, then only the term development comes into existence. So therefore, we need natural resources for any types of development. And whenever the indiscriminate use of natural resources, it results in over-exploitation. Now, over-exploitation means overuse of the natural resources, because natural resources is free gift of nature. But it also has a certain limit, it also has a certain reserve, and when that reserve gets completely exhausted, that is known as the over-exploitation or completely use of the natural resources. So therefore, environmental management is a process of planning, reviews, decision making and the like, which is essential in a real life situation of limited resources and changing priorities. So here the definition of environmental management is being mentioned out here. So remember the definition of environmental management. Next, sustainable development. Now sustainable development it is the development which meets the need of the present. It means that which fulfills the demand of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. In a simple way, it means that it meets the need of the present. It meets the need of the present without compromising. It means that we are not exploiting the natural resource in such a way that the new future generation won't be able to see or won't be able to find what is that particular mineral. Let's say, for example, petroleum. If the petroleum products is being overexploited in the coming near future, the petroleum products, especially those crude oil, will be completely overexploited, and the new generation, they won't be able to see those petroleum products. So that is why sustainable development means that it is the development which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. Next is land use pattern. Clear? Now in terms of land use pattern, it has been further subdivided. The first one is the net area sown. Now net area sown means those particular areas which has been brought under cultivation. Now these areas, when it is brought under cultivation, the reason is to fulfill the demands of food grains, especially for the increasing population, especially in India. Therefore, this net sown area, I have just mentioned out the points and go through these points. Yeah, I will be explaining these points, but make sure give emphasis on this particular points, because I have selected only the important points for you all. The first point is that to increase net sown areas to fulfill the increasing demand of food due to rapidly increasing population. Second point is that there is a very less scope to increase area. Now if you look at here, especially the land cannot be increased. The size of the land cannot be increased due to some natural limitations such as topography. Now topography is also called as a relief. So because of the relief feature, a land cannot be increased, or it cannot be expanded, or it cannot be pulled to make it much more bigger. Next is area sown more than once. Now area sown more than once means a piece of land which is cultivated more than once. Therefore, that is why India is a self-sufficient country in terms of food grains. Now, if you remember, especially in class 8 or class 9, I think you have learned that in India, the paddy cultivation in India, it takes thrice in a year. It means that there are 3 types of crops or 3 types of paddy which is grown in India. That is Aus, Aman, and Kharif. Now these 3 crops, when these 3 types of paddy which is being grown in India, it results in making our country a self-sufficient country. And those areas where these types of cultivation, it means that the cultivation more than once takes place, those area is referred as area sown more than once. So it means that in these areas they grow crops more than one in a year. Clear? And secondly, that these areas comprises of fertile soil. It comprises of fertile soil with regular water supply, especially example Indo-Gangetic plains, Punjab and Haryana. Now if you look at this Indo-Gangetic plains, Indo-Gangetic plains is one of the most fertile plains in the world, and therefore in these Indo-Gangetic plains, the cultivation takes place throughout the year, as especially during the rainy season, the flood brings plenty of sediments and making the soil one of the most fertile soil in the world. Next, forest. Now if you look at this forest, now forest also comes under the land use pattern. Now especially to maintain the ecological balance, a country requires 33% of the total area under forest. It means that 1/3 of a country should be under the forest to maintain the ecological balance. But in terms of India, we have only 22.89% of area under the forest cover. It means that we are deficient of having less area in terms of forest cover, and that is why the ecological balance is not well balanced or not well maintained. Now, to increase this area under the forest, means under the forest, a massive plantation has to be implemented so that more areas are brought under the forest. And not only that, there must be a strict laws, especially for those who do not follow the order, or especially for those who doesn't have any sense of humor that the trees is one of the important resources, not only for him but for the entire country as well as for the entire world. And the strict laws should also be implemented, especially to the smugglers who smuggle timber. Clear? Illegally they cut down the trees and they sell the timber in the markets, and those needs to be punished very, very strictly. Next point, those agricultural land must be brought under forest, such as forest land now under agriculture. Now what happened was that when the people started to live, especially now those people, they first cleared down the forest, and those forest land was brought under agriculture. And now what the government is planning is that those land which was earlier covered under forest needs to be brought back, and new afforestation or reforestation programs should be relaunched so that the forest cover of India can be increased. Next, land not available for cultivation. Now if you look at this land not available for cultivation, it has been divided into two groups. The first one is the non-agricultural uses. Now non-agricultural uses, now those areas which has been used during the construction of roads, railway lines, hospitals, especially for the construction of infrastructure, those areas comes under the non-agricultural uses. The second one is the barren or uncultivable waste. Now those areas such as the mountains, the hill slopes and the deserts, they come under barren or uncultivable waste, because on these lands the cultivation cannot be done. But if this non-agricultural land and barren lands, if they brought under cultivation with the high capital investment, it means that these areas can be brought under cultivation with a very high capital investment. But the problem is that there will be a very, very, very low return. So because of that, no one is in a position to invest a huge capital on these lands so that he or she can get a very, very low returns. Next is permanent pasture lands or grazing lands. Now especially if you look at here, now pasture lands means what? An area which is specially meant for the domestic animals, where they can graze themselves and they can feed themselves. Now if you look at it, especially in terms of India, now in India, especially in the rural areas, there are millions and millions of domestic animals which has been kept especially as a livestock. And to provide grass for these livestock, there are huge areas, or there are huge permanent pasture land or grazing lands which has been left barren only specially for the domestic animals. And these areas cannot be brought under cultivation, because if they are brought under cultivation, then the livestock will not get sufficient food for themselves. Next, land under miscellaneous tree crops and groves. Now if you look at here, especially those areas, now if you look, whenever you visit towards Darjeeling, you will find plenty of areas under the tea plantation. Now those areas which is under tea plantation, which is under different types of orchard, like mango orchard, apple orchard, you may find different varieties of orchards, especially in and around India. Now those areas which is being used specially for gaining capital, for earning income, those areas comes under land under miscellaneous tree crops and groves. In Kalimpong, especially this cardamom, the big cardamom, the ginger. Now those cultivation takes place because to earn some extra money. It means when they sell it in the market, they get a huge return, and those areas also comes under land under miscellaneous tree crops and groves. Next, cultivable waste. Now cultivable waste means those land which was used for cultivation, but nowadays it is not been used for cultivation. It is not used for cultivation because of one reason or for other reason, such as lack of water. Whenever there is shortage of water, a cultivation cannot be done. Salinity of the soil, when the soil turns salty in nature, those areas cannot be used for agriculture. Or soil erosion. Whenever the soil erosion takes place, the fertile soil gets washed away, making the land unfertile soil. So because of these reasons, when the land is not brought under cultivation, those areas are called as cultivable waste. Next is fallow land. Now if you look at here, fallow land which was used for cultivation, but it is temporarily out of cultivation. Means that earlier the cultivation used to take place, but nowadays the cultivation has been stopped, and because of that, this fallow land, it has been brought into two types. The first one is the current fallow. Now current fallow means the present land which is not brought under cultivation. It means that the fallow of 1 year. It means that the land which is not brought under cultivation since last year. The reason is that it is left to regain natural fertility naturally. Clear? So that it can get its natural fertility, it can maintain its fertility naturally. So those areas which has been left barren, uncultivated for at least 1 year to regain its fertility, that area is called as a current fallow. Next one is that fallow other than current fallow. Now, it means that those areas or those agricultural lands which is not been brought under cultivation since 2 to 5 years. Since 2 to 5 years. The reason is that due to the soil alkalinity. Whenever the soil turns alkaline, it cannot be called as a fertile soil, and the production is very less, which hampers the farmers in terms of capital investment. Next, reasons for small and fragmented land holdings. Now what do you mean by small and fragmented land holding is that whenever a farmer owns a small piece of land, clear, the small piece of land in one small piece of land in 8th mile, one small piece of land in 10th mile, when he has small pieces of land scattered in an area, that is called as fragmented land holdings. Now this fragmented land holdings is because, first it is because of inheritance of law. Now especially in terms of Indian constitution, in the Indian rule, it has been said that the property of a father is being passed to his offspring, that means to his sons and to his daughter, after his death. So when this chain of passing the property moves on from the father to the son to the grandson, the land becomes smaller and smaller, because each one has to be distributed equally to each and every children, resulting the area or the land to become smaller in nature. Second point is that subdivision and fragmentation of the holdings. Subdivision and fragmentation of the land holdings, irrigation becomes difficult. Whenever the land becomes smaller and smaller, irrigation becomes difficult, because new modern method of irrigation cannot be purchased on a small piece of land, because what happens out here is that it becomes high capital investment with low returns, because to buy a new method or a modern method of irrigation, the farmers need to invest huge amount of money, and to get the returns of that investment, it takes many years. So because of that, these are the reasons why there is small and fragmented land holding takes place, especially in India. The solutions to solve land fragmentation or limited agricultural land. The first is consolidation of land holding. Consolidation of land holding. It means that when a farmer has a scattered pieces of land in a particular place, the government takes those areas, and measures that all the pieces of land, and based on the measurement, a big piece of land is given in the nearby the farmer's house, which is much more fertile, and that is called as consolidation of land holding. Another solution is that cooperative farming. Cooperative farming means when many numbers of farmers, they unite together. Clear? When they unite together, it results in a cooperative farming. It means that each one of them is cooperating one and another. So cooperative farming, in which the farmers invest their resource and share profit. It means that all the farmers, they invest their capital, especially for the production of different types of crops, and whenever the harvesting takes place, and whenever that product is being sold, they share their profit among themselves, and that is called as a cooperative farming.